Perfect. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the So Rude podcast. My name is Paige Ruderman, and today I am so excited to welcome a special guest to the show. Nick Rich is an incredible vocalist whose soulful sound has been compared to the likes of Adele, Amy Winehouse, and ZZ Ward. After years of imitating the singing styles of iconic soul pop singers and teaching himself the guitar, he started writing his own records. Blending elements of country, soul, blues, jazz and pop, Nick Rich has created a bittersweet sound that is all his own while combining his poetic lyricism and storytelling of pain and love. We met shortly after I moved to Nashville, and I am so excited to dig into Nick's journey, his creative process, and what's next for this rising star. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the So Rude podcast.
Hi, that is a lot to live up to, but thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. You live up to it and exceed, please. I know I shared a little bit about your background, but can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more about you or anything I may have missed?
Yeah, I'm from Florida originally. I think a lot of people, it's funny, like people who message me online, they assume I'm from like the UK or whatnot. But no, I'm from Florida, and yeah, I think you and I moved to Nashville around the same time. What year?
I officially moved in July of 2022.
July of 2022. Okay, so I moved in the fall of 2021. So yeah, we were within probably 6 months or so of coming here.
Wild. So
Crazy.
growing up in Florida, what part of Florida?
Sarasota, so it's on the west coast. It's probably like an hour or so south of Tampa. But yeah, I lived there for 18 years. And then once I graduated high school, I said goodbye and came up to Nashville. So I've been here for 3 years now. Yeah.
I love that. So like what was it like growing up in Florida? Were you by the beaches, I imagine?
My house was probably a good 15 or 20 minutes from the beach. But like, I am like so fair skinned. So like, my parents never really took me to the beach a lot just because like, I'd always get burnt and whatever. But now when I go back and visit, like, I visit the beach all the time because I like, you don't have that here. So you kind of miss what you had. And then, yeah, I grew up pretty close to the beach, but was not a beach kid at all.
No, that's fair. Your parents were probably like, this poor child. We cannot
I
make them
know.
suffer in the
I
sun.
know. Yeah, and like growing up there like was kind of a struggle because that's kind of the culture a little bit is like everyone is like let's go to the beach or let's go like hang out outside or like, Florida's such like a outside type of place and I was always like in a big hat or like always reapplying sunscreen like 5 times more than any other kid would be and still getting burnt. So it wasn't really as enjoyable as I wanted it to be, and it kind of made me a little insecure as far as like I think I was always like a very careful kid. Like I think my parents always like wanting to reapply sunscreen and stuff like was made me very cautious like just in my like adventures. Like I was never really a super adventurous kid for some reason. So I don't know. I don't have to think about that a little bit more, but
Yeah, and that's relatable. I'm also very fair skinned, so I literally can just look at the sun and get burned. But
right. Yeah, it's tough. Ugh.
so like then how did you get into music? What was the music
Yeah.
scene like in Florida growing up?
Kind of non-existent, but in elementary school, we had this guy and his wife. They were violin teachers, and they came to my school and they did like this little performance for us. And they were like, on every Wednesday after school, starting next week, we're going to start violin lessons if you want to come. I was like, okay, like that seems really interesting to me. And so I went and did that. And I really loved it at first. And our town had a little youth orchestra. It's called the Sarasota Youth Orchestra. And I guess it's kind of like a pretty big deal in as far as youth orchestras go, but I don't know who's keeping track of that. But yeah, I did that up until my 8th grade year. So I played violin. I just really like wanted to do something other than classical music. I think my 6th grade year or my 7th grade year, I had really fallen in love with like with music. Like I feel like we like songwriters, you probably have this too, where you have one moment, a song dropped or like an artist did something and you were like, "Whoa, I didn't know music could do that." And for me, that was when Adele dropped 25 and Hello and like that music video, but also just like the song. I was just like, there's no way people can like sound like this. And who, and you know, like it was just all these questions of like, what goes into a song? Is she writing the song? Is someone else writing the song? Like, and then how does she know how to sing it? Is someone telling her how to sing it? Like, all these weird questions when you're young, you know, like there's so many people who are like, I felt like every time my mom turned on the radio, like the singer was actually having to sing
Oh, wow.
like every time. Like I've heard a lot of people say that. And that was kind of one of those moments. And so I was like, I really want to get into songwriting or music somehow, more contemporary. I had also done theater a little bit, and I was just never a singer though. Like I never was encouraged to like sing or anything like that. I just sang in the ensemble numbers. And then if I did have a singing part, it was always like something so strange. Like I remember I was casted as Mufasa in The Lion King, and like that song is called. It's not in the movie, but it was written for the musical, and it's like a baritone part, and it's like super low, like down here, like Mufasa, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And so I think that's maybe why I never really got encouraged to sing because maybe I just never felt comfortable with the stuff I had to sing, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I picked up guitar, and I think everyone kind of teaches themselves guitar. So I don't really think that's like a pat on my back. But yeah, I started playing guitar and like singing contemporary music, and that's when I started listening to Adele and Amy Winehouse and Sade and all these other pretty amazing people. So,
I love what you said about you were singing and you were playing music, but it didn't fully connect for you yet.
yeah.
And then you found something that felt much more authentic to
Hmm.
your vision for what music could be. I think
Yeah.
that's so cool. So is Adele, like, would you describe her as one of your most influential artists growing up? Or like who else inspired
Totally.
you?
Yeah, she was definitely the first. I know you and I have talked about that all the time. Like, she was definitely the first to like really open my eyes to what music could be. But I think the most important thing to me about her is just her whole mentality surrounding the music industry. I think is really why I've grown to love her more than I think anyone else is just because there's always this notion that the music comes before anything else, you know, and it's not about, you know, the brand deals or the commercials or anything like that. It's just I will make the music when I feel ready to and when I feel like the music is good. And that is something that I've like really taken with me throughout my whole entire journey with learning how to make songs and learning how to sing was just the importance of being allowed to even create and to take that with some sort of seriousness that this is not a product that I'm making. This is a piece of art that I'm making. And if it ever leans towards the side of being a product, I think you're heading in the wrong direction. So she was really like monumental in teaching me that. But outside of that, I mean, her voice is incredible, but I really kind of got into, I'm trying to think like in order who I really like was listening to at the time. But I think it started with Adele, and then I went through a lot of like the great icons of soul music, and I listened to a lot of Etta James and then a lot of Aretha Franklin, Billie Holiday, and Ella Fitzgerald. And I really dove deep. There's something like weird about my wiring where I really love female voices specifically. And like I don't really resonate with male voices that much. And maybe that has something to do with the lyrical content that they're talking about. But yeah, it was mostly those artists. But then I think everyone goes through their like Michael Jackson phase and their like Prince phase and Queen and like classic rock. And then, you know, my mom also owned a dance studio, so I would be listening to like Lady Gaga and like Black Eyed Peas a lot. So it was a lot of different things, but it definitely was more in the realm of pop music, soul music, and then in high school I started getting into country music, which is a whole nother thing.
There's so much to unpack there.
I know.
I love what you said, but in a fun way. I love what you said about male voices. There weren't any that really like spoke to you because
Yeah,
even today, I feel like male pop stars, like who are the male pop stars?
I
I mean, like,
know.
you know what I mean? There's so many
Right.
people that are striving and growing and like even the growth that I've gotten to see as a friend, because like we connected
Yeah.
and like even the growth I've seen as a friend over the last 2 years, I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
you don't see a bunch of like big male pop stars right
Yeah.
now.
Mm-mm. You know, it's funny because if you look at like who, and I'm not big on like checking what the charts are or anything because I really don't think it matters that much, but I think the number one artist on Spotify is The Weeknd.
Really?
Yeah, and I know that, obviously, Drake is huge, right? And I love Drake. And like, there's a lot of male artists who are massive. Ed Sheeran, Justin
Bad
Bieber.
Bunny, I know was like really big there for a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah.
Harry Styles, like these artists are huge, but for some reason it seems like the conversation in pulp culture and amongst like just people is not really surrounding male artists. It feels like a lot of the conversation is surrounding these up and coming female artists or just female artists in general. Like, there's always, I think, an interest in what Beyonce is doing and Taylor Swift and Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter, which is amazing because I absolutely love that. I think for the first time, really, in history, it's like these female artists are starting to get all the flowers. And it's so cool because, and I've heard Taylor Swift talk about this a lot. No one expects any of the male pop stars to reinvent themselves every album, right? No one's like, oh, I hope the next Bruno Mars era is like this or like that. It's just like Bruno Mars has kind of been Bruno Mars, which is amazing. We love Bruno Mars. And same with Harry, kind of. He's kind of always been, at least since he's went solo,
Hmm.
he's kind of been Harry. No one expects them to change, but if Taylor Swift drops an album tomorrow, people are hoping for a new color scheme and a new font and a new brand and a whole new universe, which is a lot to expect. And it's a tough job, but it seems like all of these women are up to the challenge because every time they're dropping something, they are creating these universes and these sonic landscapes that I think men aren't doing as well. And so that's something that I really appreciate and speaks to me. Not that I ever want to like have to start a new era because I don't think my music necessarily lends itself to do that. But I think it's really inspiring that people are not afraid to take leaps in album cycles nowadays. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's such an interesting insight about people needing to rebrand. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
every release needs to feel like it's a new iteration of this person.
Hmm.
Because you and I have had conversations about like how poignant it was for you when you were picking your sound and your tone and your look and your brand and like how you really wanted to have it packaged and you wanted your artistry
Yeah.
to live in this package. And I would love to like talk through that, like
Yes,
what went
please.
into making those decisions and like and how did you come about? Because like you've really found your lane and it's so
Thank you.
inspiring to see someone be so sure of like where they're going to go. And so I would just love to dig into that.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you asked me about that because it's something I take so seriously, but I think it's something that is often overlooked because, like your favorite artists, they already have that brand established. Like I feel like most people don't find their favorite artist when they haven't figured out what their sound is or what their look is yet, because that's the things that make people go, never mind. Like, let me keep scrolling or let me keep, moving forward. So that was, I think, it's funny. I've had this conversation before with a couple of other up and coming artists, and I remember having this conversation with a pianist, and he was like, you should really spend more time getting better at piano. Like, I think it would be really, and this wasn't in a rude way. It was just like, I think it could be really beneficial to your songwriting. And I was like, totally. I was like, I think that's a really good point. And I was like, but I'm just right now, I'm like spending a lot of time trying to figure out exactly like how I want to look and like the type of artistry, the type of vision that I want to have for my whole career. Like I really want to take the time to dive deep into that. And I feel like artistry and like crafting a vision is almost as intensive as doing anything else in the musicality of learning an instrument or writing a song. If anything, I think it's more involved than writing a song. So I really sat there in my first 6 months to a year of being in Nashville. And while I was writing the first couple of songs, I was constantly asking myself, like, what do these songs look like? You know? And like, if this, like one of my songs, for example, Hot Mess, I think was so integral to like figuring out what my image was. It was like, if this song was a movie or a video, what do the characters look like in that? And what colors are in that? And I had always found that, like, in a lot of my music, I feel like there's this darkness in it. I feel like there's kind of a black that I see usually always, and it's like the space that exists in between the instrumentation. But there's always like a little bit of red or like orange or like an amber. And I don't know if I only see that because I'm thinking of like my hair color or something like that. But I also think the music tends to give me those colors as well. So then I went into like my biggest inspirations musically, and if I'm taking inspiration from artists like Adele and George Michael and Amy Winehouse and Sade, if my music has some sort of attributes that theirs does, maybe part of their success was also in their image as well. So I really wanted to look at what are they wearing and what did they establish for themselves as their like signature things. And if you look at Adele, her signature thing is a winged eyeliner and a black dress. At least for her live shows. If she's on the red carpet for an award, she might do a red dress or something like that. But then when you look at George Michael, like what was so important with him? Well, he always had some shades on. And then, later in this career in the 90s, he kind of had usually like a blazer and maybe some jeans. And he had that short haircut. And so, like, you start seeing all these things. Without these things, I feel like it's really hard to grab on to a new artist. Like if I'm a new artist for everybody in the world, right? No one really knows who I am. I have to have something that people can grab onto or else there's nothing to follow. And so if automatically my hair, it being red, is something to grab onto, then maybe I should lean into that within my look. And how do I do that? Well, if I want to make it pop out, then I should wear black because it's the only color. My hair is the only color. So that went into that decision as far as like, what do I wear? And so it was a mix of, okay, I'll wear black to make sure my hair pops so people can always remember what I really look like. But I think black also speaks to the understated tone of like how colorful I really want my sound to be. I want it to be a certain level of seriousness within it. And I think black kind of gives that in a sense. It's a very serious color. But then I'm like really going into it. Like I'm
No, I
like
love it. I love it. I was just thinking, I'm like the sophistication that black,
yeah,
like people always say, like have a little black dress or like black's always
yeah.
in. Like I love what you were saying about like the red hair can pop or
Mhm.
it allows the music to speak because it's not being
Yes,
overshadowed
exactly.
by maybe the outfits or the outlandishness and the kind of campy thing that can come with fashion. It's like, no, the fashion is its own so that way the music can shine.
Exactly. That's 100% what it is. And I really want people to understand that the music is the most important part of this. And so I think, it's always at the top of the pyramid and everything else is below it. And so I think making sure that my image can get out of the way enough to make sure that the music is always shining is the most important part, I think, to at least what I want my artistry to be. And I think there's nothing wrong with artists who want to have a colorful image and who want to have, so much fun in their fashion and whatnot. I think it's true to them. If it's true to them, it's true to them. But I'm not someone who wears a whole rainbow every day. It's just not me. So,
Yeah, like a costume. Like it becomes,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which is, I mean, the people who do it, it's incredible. Like Michael Jackson, I mean, I'm so glad he never just showed up in, a t-shirt or something like that, it's incredible. But that's something that really spoke true to me was making sure that I got out of the way of the music 100%.
And what's fascinating is that it sounds like all of these thoughts, the planning, the brainstorming was happening before the singles came out. Like you wanted
Yeah,
for when it launched, you're like, I want to already have answers to these questions. At least what it sounds like.
totally. Yeah, I think it's that's definitely the truth. I was definitely writing these songs while I was figuring that out, and I think it took me a while to release the first couple of singles because I wanted to make sure I had that figured out. Because the last thing I really wanted to do, there's part of me that is a little upset because when I released Devil on My Shoulder, that my first ever single, I released that not way too soon, but I released that at the beginning of trying to figure out exactly who I wanted to be as an artist, and I the sound was there of what I wanted to be, but the image was not quite. And I did a live performance video, and you can go back, and I'll probably keep it up for forever because I think it's interesting. But you can go back and you can see like what I'm wearing is like just not who I am right now, which it's a bit cringe to me, but I don't think anyone really, I think there's a bit of a charm in it. But yeah, I definitely like you said, I definitely wanted to make sure I had some of these questions answered before I jumped right in. And I think if you look back like from the beginning, there is a continuity to like what I'm doing with from the beginning all the way up to now. And I think that speaks true to like the vision that I've tried to keep for myself of how I want everything to be, which it's such a challenge, but I think it's such a payoff when you're able to find an artist and you don't just like one song, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like they really hit something with this song, but it doesn't seem like anything else like really is in line with what this song was in line with. And so I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, you should be because living in Nashville, we meet so many people around town that are
Mhm.
aspiring artists. And I mean, almost a step back for just a moment, what you
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
talking about with the vision, it makes me think like that's the difference between a singer and
Hmm.
an artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
have that written in my phone
do you
page.
really?
Yes, I was sitting there today. I was like, I got to make a point to make a mention. And I have this. I don't know if you can
Oh
see
my
it,
God, they're not
but
songwriters or I
yeah.
love
But
that.
I was gonna say like my favorite artists, they're not songwriters, they're poets, and they're not singers, they're artists. And that is so funny that you brought that up. But yes, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you did
But
it, but you painted like you really painted that understanding in the way you were talking.
Mhm.
So like you definitely hit the nail on the head that yeah, it's like people that are rememberable that you want to follow, that you want to champion, that you want to cheer on. It's like because they are doing something that you can get behind. And it's not to say that we don't all start somewhere. Like we all start somewhere.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
totally.
but to your point, like you only start to remember or follow people when they've identified what that is.
Totally. And I think also like going back to my point with that guy who told me to really take piano more seriously, that and it could improve my songwriting. I think figuring out your artistic vision is equally as important to mastering your musical craft. If your music is all about your love for your guitar playing and your love for your singing, your artistry should be just as involved. Like your vision should be just as involved because the vision is the only thing that allows people to understand what you are. And it's not a song that does that. It's what you look like, it's how you talk, it's so much more than just the song. It's like, are you living your art, And vice versa. Is your art you? Like, is your art coming from you? Or is it coming from a place of like, well, I'm just trying to make a song for TikTok or whatnot, which everything has its time and place. But those are the questions that I was asking myself all the time.
That's fascinating. And anyone listening to this episode that is an aspiring artist is still trying to work through those. Like you listed
Mhm.
so many phenomenal questions that people can go back and brainstorm for themselves. Like, how would you answer this question? And okay, I got
Yeah.
the lucky chance to see the Nick Rich perform down at the
Uh,
end in Nashville. Like,
yes.
and it was so cool to see you perform. But like, yes, your
Thank
sound
you.
and your look, like it just was cohesive.
Thank
Everything fit
you.
together.
That makes me so happy to hear. Yes, that is. the goal 100%. I mean, one of my least favorite things is like seeing a band who sounds amazing, but they just showed up in like t-shirts and cargo shorts and they're just like playing the gig. And I'm like, guys, like it's not, you don't have to be wearing anything expensive. That's not the point at all, but it's just like get together for 10 minutes or something and be like, who are we? Like what do we, it's like, a football team. It's like, we're all on the same team here. Like we want, and if we want people to be on board, if we want people to like, to really understand what we're doing, we have to look like we fit together, you know? So I'm
Totally.
so glad you say that. That means everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's so true. And like the biggest part of this, in addition to the look, is the sound. And I would
Yeah.
love to dig into like how. So it sounds like you put so much attention into the look and the branding of you as an artist, capturing the essence of you in your art, and then developing your sound because you have found a lane.
Yeah.
What was that like? How did you go about finding the collaborators to bring that to life? Would
Yeah.
love to hear your steps for that
Yeah.
too.
Well, definitely, I think just to make it known, the sound, the figuring out what the sound was came way before figuring out what the image was and the look. And I think that's really important. I think if people are like aspiring to really dive deep into their own artistry, always follow with the music leading 100%. So, funny enough, moved to Nashville to be a country artist. And
Nah.
I think I
No, wait,
told you
I did
that,
not know
right?
that. No.
Oh, I never told. Yes, I have told you that. I think I have because no, maybe I haven't. But I've told you that I always have these little country
Yes.
songs.
No,
Like,
we have
yeah.
talked about that. And I have a
Okay.
question for that later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wait, no, I did not know that.
Yes. So in high
Really?
school, so in high school I got into country music very, very much. And it was just what all my friends were listening to was country music. And I ran cross country and track in high school. And so they were all listening to this music at practice and like wherever we were. And so I was like, I was not about it at first. I thought it was really stereotypical and like, oh, okay, all this music is really the same. But then you find some of those artists who are really doing something in the genre. Like I fell in love with Chris Stapleton and Casey Musgraves and even Miranda Lambert. I feel like she's overlooked, but I think her songwriting is incredible. And I really fell in love with the genre. And as I was getting ready to move to pursue music, that was the most relevant genre to my life in that moment. So I was like, I'm gonna go and write country music. And I came here and I originally met my first manager and I was like, okay, I want to be, a country artist and whatever it was. And so when I tell people that like I had to sit there and figure out who I wanted to be as an artist, it was a lot of doing the completely wrong things looking back. Like I went and if you're afraid of failing, like do not be, because I came here thinking I was going to make country music. And now 2.5 years later, I definitely do not. And,
Right.
and it has not gotten in the way of the music I'm making now. So yeah, I came here and I started writing country music and then it just felt disingenuine. Like I was making the music, I figured out what the formula was, and it just was not ringing true to who I was as a person. The lyrical content I think was not my life in any way. And that's when I first wrote. I remember turning to my manager. And this was like, this is such a weird story that sounds unbelievable, but it is so true. We sat down and I met this manager within a month of moving to Nashville, which is so weird. And I hadn't put out a song yet at all. But he said, I want 10 original songs by Friday. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. And I was like, and there's no way I'm going to have 10 original songs for you by Friday. And he was like, well, then you just don't want it badly enough. And I was like, well, that's not true. I was like, I just don't think that they would be good. Like, I think I could make 10 songs, but I just don't think that they would be well thought out and well made. And he was like, well, I could go down to Broadway right now and I'm sure I could find someone who already has 10 songs. And I was like, that's a good point. I was like, you probably can. And that was one of those moments where I was like, all right, I need to do some other things before I try to just release music, Like I need to figure out what my sound is. And then I just went back to the basics. I was like, well, why did I fall in love with music? And it was because of artists like Adele and Amy Winehouse. And I just kept going back and listening to all the music, which made me fall in love with music. And I kept listening, and I wrote this song, the only song that I wrote that week. It was called Devil on My Shoulder. And I brought it to my manager. And I was like, this is what I came up with. And he was like, it's not really country at all. And it was just the demo at the time. And I was like, yeah, like I don't know, but like I just think it really suits my voice. Like my voice just like feels right singing this. I like how it sounds. I like how my voice sounds singing this, and the lyrical content, it just like it makes sense for me. And he was like, "What are you singing about though?" And I was like, "Well, I feel like the lyrical content of the song is kind of that notion that I always have, that voice in my head of like, maybe this isn't right. Like, maybe what you're doing is not right, which is, your devil on my shoulder. Yeah, I made that song. And funny enough, at the same time that I wrote that song, I was hanging out with another songwriter at the time, and his roommate was at the house, and I was pitching the song to my songwriter friend because I knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to release it because it's not a country song. And his roommate came out of his room with his guitar, and I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but there's a whistle that starts at the top of the song, and he just started doing this whistle. And if you want to put the little whistle into the thing, you
I
definitely
got you.
can. Yeah,
I'm gonna see if
yeah,
I can.
yeah. Yeah, so here's the whistle. And then yeah, he started doing the whistle, and I was like, that is the song. I was like, that whistle is so iconic to what this should be. And he was like, sure, like, totally. I think that's a good idea. And I went back to my manager, and I was like, okay, I think I should really put this song out. Like, I really love it. I think it should be my first single. And he was like, no, I don't think so. And I turned back to the guy, that roommate who was whistling, and I was like, can I use the whistle? Like, are you okay with that? I'll give you writing credit, even though it's just a whistle. He was like, you can use the whistle only if I get to produce the song. And I was like, I didn't know you were a producer. And he had shared a demo with me of a song that he made called Blood Moon. And the song had such a similar vibe to Devil on My Shoulder. And I remember I went home to Florida for the weekend, and I just kept listening to this demo over and over and over again. And I was like, I really think he should produce it, other than the fact that he would only let me use the whistle if he produced it. But I thought it was a really good fit. So I sent the demo over to him. And this is also a really interesting story. I sent the demo that I recorded over to him, the vocals and the guitar playing and everything. And I had forgot to send the chorus vocal of the song. He produced a version of the song without the chorus, and he had looped the end of the pre-chorus, which is the haven't learned to lie,
Yeah.
that part, and he just kept looping that over and over again, and that ended up becoming the chorus. So the song is not even the full song that I had written, but it somehow worked. It somehow worked, and we ended up keeping it that way. It doesn't have the original chorus that I intended for it to have. I posted it online, and it did really, really well. I think it got like a 1.3 million or something on TikTok, which was nuts. Like, this is my first time ever getting any sort of views or anything like that. And I had posted it on my way to work. I worked construction at the time. It's a lot of lore. I'm so sorry.
I love
And
the lore. Hit me with it.
and so I posted it as on my way to work, and then I remember after work checking it, and yeah, it had gone viral. And we hadn't even finished the song, but I called up, his name's Cameron, the guy who I made the song with, the roommate at the time.
Shout out Cameron.
Yes, and I was like, we need to finish this song within the next couple of days and put it out because people are interested in it and I'm motivated to get it done. So let's just do it. And I completely went behind my manager's back and recorded the song. We finished it within like a day and a half. I mean, he worked on it nonstop. And then we released it like 3 days after we posted the initial video. And then my manager was pissed, 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 pissed. And I decided it was in my best interest to stop working with him. And that was the first song. And so that song I think I is all my credit for finding my sound because it was really just a testament to like, okay, this is the direction I need to be heading in. And all the pieces fell into place for that song to work, like I met the person who could help make it. I was motivated enough to get it done. Like it really just worked out. And this was in the first 5 months of me moving to Nashville. So it was like such a really great thing to happen to me for sure.
One take home message I'm taking from that story is like you were working with a manager for a country sound, and it almost felt like, okay, I'm trying to put like a square peg in a round hole. This is not fitting. It's not working. And
Yeah.
then through that process, you then all of the pieces that made what is going to work showed themselves. And even
Yeah.
though it wasn't this quote unquote direct A to B that you were looking for, it really brought you where you needed to go.
Yeah. Totally. 100%. And I feel like that's why I'm so happy that I failed, like with the country music. Like I'm so happy that I tried it and I listened back to it and I said, this is not working because that gut intuition is still with me. Like, and it will, I hope, continue to stay with me because I've still, this never, this, and I know you feel this too. I still write songs and make songs where I go, nope, this is not me. Like, this is just not it. And, because I get inspired to try a different sound or like, incorporate this type of melody or this type of background vocal or something. And I'm like, nope, like it worked for them, like that artist who I love, but it does not work for me, which is fine. So you kind of learn those things as you go, but you absolutely have to fail to be able to get to those points. So I think that's my takeaway is I'm so glad I failed.
Yeah, so powerful. And I actually was going to ask you about that because you have written every song that you've put
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
So, do you like the writing process? Is that like your favorite part
Yes.
of it? And like,
My
yeah.
favorite. I think first and foremost, I am a lyricist before anything. I write 100% of all of my own lyrics. And the first song, Devil on My Shoulder, I don't think that was like lyrically anything necessarily special. But my second song, Don't Miss Me, is just a piano ballad, and we wrote that shortly after Devil on My Shoulder. And the lyrics in that song, it's one of those moments where people talk about this where it's like I felt like I didn't even write it. Like something came through me. Like the music just came through me and I had to just like make sure that I was the vessel for it to come through. And those lyrics are proof of that because I think it's probably still my one of my favorite, if not my favorite lyric that I've ever written, at least with the songs that I have out right now. In that second verse, it says, "Don't follow me. The door is locked. I didn't change the key, just a change of heart." It rhymes when I sing it. but
No,
with
but the poetry, it's poetry.
but I loved it. And how I write is so weird. I kind of like pace back and forth in my room or like wherever I am. And I just walk back and forth. And like for some reason, like that movement like really helps me to come up with lyrics and like lets my brain work. And I came up with that lyric and I was like, whoa, I was like, wait, maybe I am actually, I can be really good at this. And so I came up with that lyric. That is one of my proudest moments. But yeah, I think that's something that I take the most seriously is the lyricism. And then I think, the vocal take I think is my second most favorite thing. And what's funny is the vocals on Devil on My Shoulder and Don't Miss Me are both the demo vocals. So
Wow.
they were not in sessions where I went in to record the final vocal with that intention. They were just me trying to lay out what I wanted the song to be, but somehow it was able to capture the emotion that I really wanted, that I had gone in later to record like the final vocal, and it just was not the same. And I think there's a term called demo-itis, where
Okay.
it's like you listen to the demo so much where your brain won't accept anything else other than the demo. And maybe that's what I had going on at the time, but I don't know. I still think the songs really work with the demo vocal, and I wasn't able to capture anything that I believed in more than those vocals. So it's really strange. And I still do that. I think Hot Mess was a demo vocal as well. I Pulled a Use a demo vocal. Babe, not really. Most of them have been demo vocals. So I think there's some truth to when you do it the first time, I think your body knows what's supposed to come out, I think. So,
And
yeah.
there's a magic there. It's like because you're
Totally.
you're running full. I feel like when you're writing it, you're running fully on emotion. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Your brain is
100%.
almost like your brain can be like put on bypass, like just sit there, let me
Yeah.
do what I want to do.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So I'm really happy with the emotion that I was able to capture in those songs. So even though, I don't think the vocal takes are perfect in any way, I don't think in any of my songs, but I think the emotion is more important and the lyric is more important. And if the vocal take is good and it sells the song, then of course that's also important. But I think if you're able to capture what the emotion is supposed to be, then everything else doesn't really matter, I think.
Yeah, and to circle back to what you were saying about your influences, like those are singers and artists that talk about the human emotion. Like these are things that
Yeah.
people live through. And
Yeah.
so you can sit there and listen to like perfect vocals and feel nothing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all the time. That I feel all the time. There are so many artists I listen to where the vocal is technically perfect. It's completely on pitch. It is completely in time and it is mixed, as compressed and as well as it can be. But it doesn't make me feel something all the time. And there are certain songs, like especially Adele songs and Sade songs, where there's a couple of moments where the artist is a little sharp or flat, and it completely sells the song. Like in Someone Like You, I think is probably the greatest song ever written. And I used to have three songs downloaded on my iPad when I was a kid, and it was Someone Like You, Viva La Vida, and Bittersweet Symphony. And I also had Clocks.
Classics.
I also had Clocks on there by Coldplay as well. But there's something in that vocal in Someone Like You, and that is the demo vocal in Someone Like You, that no one else could sing that song. You know what I mean? Like no one else could sing that song and it would do the same thing. And so that's the moment where it's one of those moments where I completely believe that the best music comes straight from the source, where I think, there's no one that could sing it better than the songwriter. And that's one of those few cases. But then again, I listen to Rihanna and I absolutely love her vocal takes, and she's not the songwriter. So, I don't really know what I truly believe with that, but there is a kind of a lack of emotion right now in music, and I think that's because there's a lack of rawness within within production and within the songwriting process. Like I think, and I just saw this interview with Phineas and Billy, and I know you probably saw it because I posted about it, but he mentioned that he feels like a lot of the trend with songwriting right now is to be so specific in what you're trying to say. Like he mentions like songs where it's like I was on the street and you were across the street and we met, and but your blouse was, on the chair in the restaurant and like stuff like that, which that does not mean a song is good or bad. But I think that's what I wrote down earlier today was like I think great songwriters are not just songwriters, but they're poets. And I feel like if you're able to say something in a really simple way, but it's so effective, I think that's the greatest songs. And like that's why I love Someone Like You. Like the whole lyric is the main lyric is never mind, I'll find someone like you. It's not the most like grandiose specific verbiage, but it's a simplicity that I don't know, just like hits me right at my core because of the relationships that I've gone through. And I think even before I went through any major relationships, it was just one of those feelings where it's like, whoa, in like 6 or 7 words, you described a whole process of being in a relationship. And I didn't need to know what the room looked like or
What your
what
aunt's
color.
name is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't need to know the specifics, but I completely understand what happened. Like I know exactly what happened. And that was something that I told myself I wanted to strive to do in my songwriting, was not to paint the picture so clearly, but to provide the frame so that your picture of your life fits in the frame. And that is, I think, what is really important with what I do, because even Hot Mess, there are certain months and times when I sing that song and it means a completely different thing than what it meant when I first wrote it, what it meant 3 months after I first wrote it, because something happens in my life and I go, wow, I am a hot mess. And that was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I feel like I'm saying something here within 4 words, and that is enough. All the other lyrics can be about whatever they want, but as long as that moment is told, the song is there. I think that that is important to my artistry as well, is the poetry and the kind of vagueness in the lyrics that somehow paints the picture, I feel like, better than giving all the details, I think.
Yeah. And especially living in Nashville, like there's a time and place for it. You know what I
Of
mean?
course. Oh, of course.
But
Yeah.
I feel like to your point, that's so interesting, the interview with Phineas and Billy. I feel like I need to, if I didn't already
Yeah.
watch it, which I probably did, I need to go back and
Yeah,
rewatch
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'm fascinated. I feel like them as a duo,
Love
they
them
really
so
hit on something
much.
special there. But I feel like in a way that's like Nashville and how country is because like everyone's doing country now. I
Yeah.
feel like it's very traditional country sometimes to give you like this is the story of, all the things. But the reason that there's different genres is because they each bring something really special.
100%. 100%. And I think, with soul music, I think specifically is what's more important than the lyrics is getting the emotion across, like what I was saying. And I think that's one of the most important things with soul music, and that's why it's called soul music, is it's emotion. That is what it is. It is, soul music is less of a genre but more of a feeling. It's like Chris Stapleton, and I know we've talked maybe about this before, but I think of Chris Stapleton more of a soul artist than I do a country artist because of the way that he is singing. I think it is so raw and so from his soul. Really just resonates with me as being more of soul music. And there are certain pop artists that do that as well, but there's also artists who I don't consider to be soul artists who try to make soul music, and sometimes I feel like it just doesn't sit right. And you can feel there was this fad going on for a long time that people would, and it's still going on, where like they kind of adopt that Amy Winehouse style of singing like to a T, where it's like very kind of sloshy and loose with the vowel. And I'm like, what's going on? Because you are definitely not from Camden, London, and you are not from a jazz background and growing up singing like that. So maybe, you just listen to Amy Winehouse and you like the way she sings, but it doesn't seem like there's a self-awareness of what your voice sounds great with. And I know that's subjective, but I don't know. I think soul music is definitely beyond just the genre. I think it's a case by case type of thing with the artist. Yeah.
It's so funny you bring up Chris Stapleton because recently there was the Nashville Songwriting Association, the
Hmm.
Songwriter Awards, and Chris Stapleton's song White Horse
Oh
won
my
as such
gosh.
a good song, right? Okay. So you know what the song is. It's
Yeah.
so powerful. I feel like every time you listen to it, you're just like enthralled. The writer
Daniel
that
Wilson.
mhm, performed it,
Uh-huh.
and I had not
I'm
heard the
gonna blow
song.
your mind. I'm gonna blow your mind right now.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Daniel Wilson. Guess what?
What?
Co-wrote Someone Like You.
Did he really?
Yes, yes. So he's the
Wow.
guy playing piano on Someone Like You. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild. Because he knows how to capture that sound.
A
Like
hundred
that.
percent.
Yeah.
But keep going. What you were gonna say?
No, that's fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Okay. So he is a musician. He's a
yeah.
writer, Daniel.
Mhm.
I had not heard White Horse before that moment in time.
Oh
And
wow.
I'll admit, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it. I'm like, this one of the top 10 songs, like top 10 songs I wish I wrote. That was the award that it won. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, lyrically, it's pretty simple.
Hmm.
I'm not being like blown away. And then I mentioned that to someone. We were talking about the winners, and he's like, no, go listen to the
Yeah.
Chris
Oh
Stapleton
my
version. So
gosh.
then I went to listen to the Chris Stapleton version. I'm like, oh my God,
It's
it's
incredible.
incredible. And that is a testament to having the right artist
Yep.
singing the right song
Yep.
in a vibe that fits them.
Yep. Totally. And I think Daniel Wilson, he's like on my dream list of people to work with. His ability to understand the urgency of what the artist needs in that moment, because even with Someone Like You and White Horse, I don't know the writing session of White Horse exactly how that went. But if you walk into a room with an artist and the goal at the end of it is to walk out with a song, hopefully, you need to, the moment from the artist when the artist walks into that room, understand what is going on with them that day, that second, that moment. And that's why, like, I think it's a disservice myself as an artist to walk into a session and to like throw up a mask of like, oh yeah, like I'm fine today. Like if I'm having an off day and I have a studio session, that's the studio session. Is I'm having an off day and this is the song that we're making. And I feel like that's how that magic is like really, really captured. And Daniel Wilson, there's something in that process, but also in the way that he structures his chords. I think they're so simple. Like Someone Like You is such a simple song when it comes to the chord structure, and so is White Horse, but they're like this perfect bed for the vocal to lay on and for the melody to run across. And that is genius. Is There's less of genius within sophistication, and I think there's more genius in simplicity. 100%. And if you can make a really complicated emotion, a really complicated lyric, a really complicated chord structure simple and effective, it's the most beautiful thing that you can do, I think. Way more than here's every harmony for this one note or whatever it is. I think it has a time and place, of course, but I don't think it's as important for sure. But
Totally.
so
And
funny that you brought up
I know
White Horse.
that's so funny. I know I've said this before on the podcast, but it's like a sundae. Like putting
Yeah.
more sprinkles and more toppings like isn't going to make the ice cream. Like it
Yeah.
can only take away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
add enough and then after that it's too much. It's like
Too much.
can you strip it down enough to where only what's necessary exists and then you
Yeah.
let it shine?
Yeah. 100%.
My dream for
100%.
you is that Daniel Wilson hears this and
Ah,
you guys get to collaborate one day and that would be fantastic.
I would love to. And if it ever does come, I just hope it comes at a good time. Because if that were to happen like anytime soon, I feel like it maybe wouldn't be a good time. But yeah, I mean, I think he's incredible. And I have such a running list of people who I think I would love to work with
Who
as
else is
far
on your
as,
list? I'm
yeah,
curious.
one of them is Ryan Tedder. I just think his ability to capture a hook is so genius. And most recently, he's worked with Tate McRae, which maybe it doesn't seem like that's something that I'm like listening to at any given point, but I love the melody and the production that Ryan Tedder and Tate McRae are putting together. And, his stuff with One Republic, I think is also incredible. Who
And
else
he's
do I
written
love?
so much like Halo by Beyonce, like
Oh yeah,
EXO, like
incredible.
Ryan Tedder is amazing.
He's incredible. I also love Tobias Jesso Jr. He started out as an indie artist. He kind of has like this John Lennon type of sound. He only released one album, and he has gone on to work with Harry Styles and Adele. Who else? Dua Lipa. He's worked with. Some of his stuff I absolutely adore, and I think is some of the best music that's ever been written. I really really think that. So he would be incredible to work with. I also think Max Martin would be such a dream, but I'm sure he's booked for the end of his life because he is probably the number one producer that anyone wants to work with ever. But and if people don't know who he is listening, I urge you to look up who he is and see his credit because he's, I think,
Oh my
written
God,
over,
Britney Spears,
yeah, 30 number one
NSYNC.
hits.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
crazy.
all of Ariana's number ones, all of, a lot of The Weeknd's number ones. I mean, he is just every Pink's number ones.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor
Yeah.
Swift, 1989, he was huge on that. Katy Perry's Teenage Dream. So it's just like his mind is so incredible. Love him. And I'm trying to think of some other artists or songwriters. I don't think I could ever do a collaboration just because I feel like it's such a disservice to the people that I look up to so much. Like, I don't think I could ever say yes to if that ever came to be, but I would love to at least write with Ray. I love her writing style, and she's written with so many people and so many songs that you probably don't know that she's written on. But she's worked with Beyonce, and I think her writing is also just really, really genius. Her melody ideas are really smart. So those are the first that come to my mind as far as who I would really love to work with. I absolutely love James Bay, and I think he's a great songwriter and super underrated, and I would love to do something with James Bay one day. I
He's Let
think,
It Go.
yeah, he has Let It
Yeah.
Go, but his second album is called Electric Light, and I think it's one of the best albums ever written. And Casey Musgraves, I would say as well. Her, I would love to work with her as well. I think her lyrics are incredible, incredible, incredible. So
And I'm a
those are a
big
couple.
fan of speaking it into existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like put it out there
Yeah,
and
yeah. Totally. Well, I have Casey tattooed on my arm, which is weird, but
do you?
yes, I do. Hold on, I can probably show you. Yeah, I have her uh
Oh my God, that's so
sideways.
cool. We always
Yeah.
wear like long sleeves at work, so I feel like yeah.
I know. You can't see. But yeah, she is still super important to my songwriting process. And I feel like a lot of my songs, especially the ones that are coming up, they all kind of have a double entendre. And I think her Golden Hour album, all of those songs just have multiple meanings, and it's so beautiful. Like it's so 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 beautiful. So I really tried to capture that, but not in a country music way. And I think Olivia Rodrigo does that really well too. She has a lot of songs that are double entendres, but they're not country songs, which I think is a bit rare. So I tried to do that with a little bit more of a soul lens, a soul perspective, and I think I kind of captured that with some upcoming things, but she's always been a kind of a north star for my lyrics as well.
Oh, I love that. Okay, speaking of upcoming things, can you give
Yeah.
us a little tease, a little sneak peek
Yeah.
of anything coming up in the world of Nick Rich?
Yeah, so I have a new single coming out at the end of November, and that is called In Case You Missed Me. And I know I sent that to you to listen
Oh,
to.
I got to listen to it. It's
Yeah.
great. I think I
Thank
texted
you.
you back. I was like, bop.
Yeah,
Just like
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's another fun one. It's really weird. Like I've written so many songs that I think are pretty deep and heavy in an emotional and lyrical way, but for some reason I just never put them out as the singles, and they always just end up as like some deep cuts or something like that. And I think In Case You Miss Me will kind of be my last really upbeat song for a while, just because like it's going back to like they don't feel 100% true to me right now being so upbeat. Like I just feel like I'm feeling a lot of different things that are not that. But after that, I am planning to release my first record in 2025. So
congratulations.
thank you. I think I'm done writing it. I'm still writing. I'm not done writing, but I think what I want the album to be is done. And I wrote it over this past summer, and I went through a really terrible like situation, and I was just really inspired to write, and I'm so so in love with the project that I was able to put together. And I started working with a different collaborator as well. His name's Romain Druit, and he's French. He's over in France. We kind of just speak to each other with music, and I think that it's like it's so beautiful because no matter what, it's the most important. And it's like we're not really letting the language of things get in the way. It's just like we're kind of having this conversation through the songwriting process. So I'm super, super proud of that. I don't think I'm ready to give the title of that away yet, but yeah, In Case You Missed Me will be out at the end of next month, and that will either be my last or second to last single before we announce the record. And the next record is what I can say is it's definitely, if you like Hot Mess, I would say it's Hot Mess the album, but I would also say it's Don't Miss Me the album. I think there's a perfect mix of like ballads and really deep relevant songs to how I'm feeling, and then there's also a good portion of, I think, really powerful songs that might not be so obviously deep as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's really killing me to like not have what I want to have out, but I'm so, so, so proud of what I've been able to work on over the past couple of months. And when it is ready, I know it will be exactly how I want it to be. I'm so, so excited. But you know what? I'll send it to you before. I'll send you all of the songs and where they're at right now as far as being completed. So, because I'd love to get your opinion on what you think.
I would love to
Um,
hear it.
yeah, I would really appreciate that. So yeah, that's kind of next. I have a show next month in London, which I just announced.
So
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. So that's in a month. I love being there, so I can't wait to go back. And then that's kind of what's on the horizon.
Very quick about the upcoming album. I'm
Yeah,
so excited for you because
thank you.
Don't Miss Me. Okay, I'm just a fan. Like, let's just
Yeah.
put it,
Oh,
let's
thank
just
you.
say what it is. Like, I'm a fan. And
Thank you.
Don't Miss Me, your
Yeah,
vocals shine. Like, if I haven't said it yet, please let
thank
me make sure
you.
this is so clear. Nick
Oh,
has
stop.
one of the most beautiful, pure, gorgeous voices. Like, just vocally, it's amazing. Tie in the
Thank
production.
you.
I'm just a fan. I'm fangirling right now. The
Thank
fact that I get to chat
you.
with you about this. And I'm also a big fan of Hot Mess because I just
Yeah.
vibe out to it. Like if you're ever just like, I just want a fun song to dance or to like drive around in. So to know
Yeah.
that you're kind of blending those two worlds together, I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you. Cannot
Thank
wait, my
you.
friend. And then as far as London goes, that
Yeah.
is so exciting. It seems like you're spending a ton of time over there because you
Yeah.
also got to play some shows over
Yes.
there earlier this year, right?
I did. I was in London back in May, and I was also in Paris. I got to open for an artist named Jane, and she's really big in France, and she's also just like the sweetest human being ever. The most shy person, but when she gets on stage, like it's like a complete flip of the switch. That was like the most incredible moment that I've ever had so far. It's so weird because when I went over to London and I played my first couple solo shows, there were like a few people waiting outside, and I just thought they were just like hanging out in the street or something. And then I walked up to the venue to go to my sound check, and they were like, Nick. I was like, Yes." And they were like, "Can we get a photo?" And I was like, "Yes, but can you send me the photo? Because no one will believe that you just asked for one." So it was like this really surreal feeling. I like am so, so grateful for that and for my fans over in London because I think I've really kind of established a little bit more of a community over there for some reason. I think that just is tribute to the sound that I have. I cannot wait to go back there because I just kind of get to really just like let loose up on stage and like talk about whatever I want because I know that they know all the references, it seems. So I cannot wait to go back, and I'll be playing a lot of the unreleased stuff at the show. Of course, I'll be playing a lot of the songs that I already have out, but I'll be playing a couple of new ones just to see what people think and start to test the waters of what people would want to hear before something else, as far as singles go. So I'm really, really excited about that. But I'm still an independent artist, so I'm in the process of talking to labels and whatnot. And so before I put the album out, I really want to hopefully get some sort of bigger team. Yeah, I know, fingers crossed, some bigger team to help promote the album, and if I can get it onto radio somewhere, playlists and whatnot, and physical distribution, it would be really, really great. But we'll see what happens with that. But regardless, I believe in the music, so it doesn't matter if that happens or not. But Yeah, I'm so excited.
Oh my God, big things are coming for you.
I know.
And it also is mind blowing you reminding us that you're an independent artist because your social media game is like
Uh,
it's you're so good at it. And it's like it's clearly been beneficial because I think Hot Mess, what is it, like 1.8 million streams
yeah. Yeah, it's something like that. I know
plus?
yeah, I know it's crossed 2 million across all platforms, but I think within the next couple of weeks or so it will hit 2 million, which is crazy because it just hit 1 million this year. And so that's been crazy, but but like I feel like something people don't talk about is like once you have that success, it kind of like eats away at you because you're always like, well, am I gonna ever do anything more than that? Like is am I gonna have a song that's bigger than that? Because if I don't, that's really sad. But it's also really amazing that it even happened in the first place. So it's these really weird mix of emotions where it's like, which I feel like people probably have that if they go like number one, or if their album goes number one, they're like, oh my gosh, this is really awesome. But when it comes time to put out the second record, they're like, oh, okay, but like, how am I gonna feel if this doesn't do as well as the first one? It's a lot of emotions to go through, and it can be kind of discouraging at times where I know I'll write a song, and I know that the song isn't as big as Hot Mess, but I just have to remember it's like that's where I go back again, back to the beginning, where I'm like, okay, it's actually not about that. And as much as I like to think people don't care about how well their music does, we all care about how our music does and if our music is reaching people. And I think it's just important to remember that it's not the reason why we do it,
Right.
but it's so important that we acknowledge the fact that it's resonating with other people and really celebrate that because that's what art is about. If you look at all these cases of visual artists like Van Gogh and all of these other people, it's like some of these people never got the opportunity for their art to be appreciated, you know, in the way that they really deserved their art to be appreciated. And you almost ask yourself, how would that have altered their well-being maybe or altered their future art? If you have these really ecstatic experiences like I feel like I'm going through with my career and everything's like getting better and like everything I could dream of, it completely influences what your art becomes, because it is your life. So you just have to acknowledge, I feel like, what is happening around you, and you can play it cool. And I think there's a difference between being humble but also acknowledging that what you have done is really struck a chord with people, and to really celebrate that. And people want to celebrate that with you because they know that my songs are theirs just as much as they are mine. And I have those songs where I feel like they're just my songs, but I have to remember I didn't write them. They're songs from other artists who I absolutely love, but somehow to me I feel like they're mine. So I think it's just like celebrate the really really good music, and that's what the shows are for, right? Is like to celebrate the music that we love, that I love, that I made, and that people love. So that's the goal of the shows, is just to really just celebrate that, and also to like try to tap into the emotions that I think people feel when they listen to those, and to really make sure that people are rewarded with what they feel like they should be when they listen to the music, the studio version. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like a metric, right? It's a metric to show
Yeah.
us that we're accomplishing what we set out to do, which is to
Uh,
create the same type of art that we resonated with.
yeah. 100%, 100%. I think the biggest takeaway is Billie Eilish said this as well. Art, you don't realize art creates art. And that is so important, is like without Adele being that artist for me, I would not be an artist. And maybe I would be, but I wouldn't be the same artist. Who knows that if the art that you make influences someone else to make their own? And I think that's so powerful because it's not even that my song has to go on and do anything life changing or anything like that. But if someone hears my song and then goes on to do something life changing, or it doesn't, they don't even have to make art, but if it inspires someone to make a decision in their life about like a relationship, like to walk away from someone who's just awful for you, or to embrace someone who you should really give a chance. Like I think that is the type of beauty that is within music that I think inspires all of us even when we don't want to admit it. How many times have I sent a text to someone after like watching a show, like a TV show, and being like, "Oh my gosh, I should try this or I should try that." Like life really imitates art. So don't underestimate, even if the metrics aren't big, like don't underestimate the change that can come from what you do, because it's kind of all a butterfly effect regardless. So it's not about the numbers at all, but it's important to acknowledge when you have touched people and to really savor that and enjoy that as much as you can.
Beautifully said. And what you just said about if the music inspires you to take action. Okay, I got to circle
Yeah.
back because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
dropped some lore and I
yeah.
just need to ask.
Yeah.
You said your mom had a dance studio.
Yes.
Is your dream to have a song of yours to have a
Oh my
choreographed dance?
gosh.
I feel like that'd be so fun.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, for this next song, in case you missed me, we had I shot a video for it, and we had originally planned to have a I wouldn't be dancing in the video, but to have a segment where there is kind of a like an interpretive dance thing going on. And it just didn't end up being exactly what I was looking for, so we didn't use it. But there's already been a couple people who have sent me some videos of themselves dancing to the music, or like asking if they could use it in some sort of recital or something like that, and which is really really cool to me. But I'm also, every time I get those messages, I'm like, are you sure? Like you don't have to, like you can choose anything else, like you doesn't have to be my song. And I had someone reach out, she's in Germany, and she's putting a little film together, and she asked to use one of my songs, and she was like, is that okay? And I was like, definitely. Like I feel grateful that you're asking me, because I don't have the power to see if someone really uses my song and puts it somewhere at this point. Like I don't have a legal team to check all that. But I don't know, that type of stuff is really neat to me. But yeah, like with my mom's studio, like that music that was played was also super inspiring to me. Like I remember hearing Lady Gaga all the time, like Poker Face, or like Katy Perry, and like Kesha, like all of these artists. And I think there is something from them in my songwriting as well. And there's a song that is the lead, most likely the lead single to the album. And it is kind of a love letter to all of my favorite Sonic inspirations. Like I feel like it has elements of Gaga in it, like a little bit of Adele, but also a little bit of Radiohead as well. And I love Tom York and the way he sings. So it's really interesting, the kind of music that I was exposed to and the music that I make now, trying to find a balance between making something sophisticated yet balanced and approachable and digestible. I feel like I've really done well on this first full length project. And I think that is just coming from listening to a ton of really commercial music and a ton of, I don't know, underground sounds as well. So trying to do something that really hasn't been done in a mainstream way, I think is something that I'm trying to do. So we'll see.
Well, we're all going to be so excited to see what comes next. And you have left some amazing advice for artists who are looking to do the same thing as you in today's episode. Like, truly, if people are not sitting there with a pen and paper, going back and collecting those nuggets, you're missing out on gold. But I'm curious, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Oh my gosh. This is not music related, but I take this into everything that I experience in my life. And I was told this by my psychology teacher in high school, to whom I really appreciate. And like the things I learned in that class about just how we react to our own emotions and to the things that happen to us, how we're all really more alike than you would think. Everyone's just like one conversation away from really seeing somebody else. He would always say, you do not have to agree with them, but you have to understand them. When he said that, like something like went off in my head, and I was like, what exactly do you mean? There were some pretty extreme examples that he used. Okay, when I was cheated on in my first relationship, I totally did not agree with what happened to me. I definitely did not agree. But what had helped me move on from that situation was making an attempt to understand why they did that. And that gave me the closure that I needed to be able to find the love for myself that I had lost, because that is something that can be taken from you in those situations if you feel like, you're not good enough because someone clearly thought that you weren't good enough. But when I sat there and I try and I go, okay, maybe it wasn't about me. Maybe it was about them, and they needed to discover something about their own selves that I was not able to provide for them. And so they went on and thought that finding it in someone else was the solution. Having that kind of understanding of what went down in that scenario without attaching the emotion to it, without attaching my own emotion to it, allowed me to see it for how it actually is. And I feel like in life, we all go through these scenarios where we have our own emotional prejudice towards things. And if I were to tell you something right now, you would already have an opinion on it. But there's always another side to the coin. And what if you don't have to agree with the other side of the coin, but if you understood it? No matter what, I've always used that saying to level myself and to get myself in a place where I feel like I can really see through the smoke and mirrors of like what is going on.
And how empathy, I feel like empathy, like that's such an
Yes,
important part of, I
so
think, being
important.
an artist, but also a human. Just
Oh my
like to your
gosh.
point,
Oh,
you don't have to agree, but you can at least empathize and understand.
yes, you have to. You like, I mean, you don't have to, but I really think to like enjoy life like to its fullest, you really should. Like you should just lead, and I know it's so cliche, but you should really just lead with goodness like in your heart. And if you ever feel like you're making a decision out of hate or something like that, it just never ends well, and you're angry about something that has happened to you. You're never angry at somebody else. You're angry at something that has happened to you. You should start to make an effort to control how you react, and you can always choose to react in a positive way. And I think that is the best. And I'm not saying I do that every time. There are so many times where I have gone off and I lose my temper, and there are songs that explain that. Of course, 100%. Even this next song that comes out at the end of next month, like that is totally a testament to where I feel like I am not like the most perfect human being ever, because I'm not. But I think it's important to remember that as much
Yeah,
as you can.
we're
Yeah.
humans, not robots.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Nick, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me. I always love talking with you. So the pleasure is all mine. And if I could talk about music all day, every day with you, I would. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, honestly, we've had so many talks like this, and like the fact that I was able to capture just a little nugget of some of
Yeah.
these phenomenal conversations means the world. And I think so many people listening to this episode are going to take something away from it. I truly do.
Yeah.
And
I
so
hope so.
every time I have a guest on the show, I always end with the same final question, which
Okay.
is, what is one thing you would tell your younger self?
Ooh. Don't do a damn thing differently. Not because I definitely have regrets. I totally definitely have regrets. But I am so, so grateful for where I am right now and all the things that went wrong and all the things that I didn't do right. I am so grateful that I did not do them right, because I am where I am because of it. So I would say don't change a damn thing.
Mic drop. Love.
It's my stubborn self, of course, but yeah, no, I think my younger self would at least understand that 100%. So, yeah.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like you have phenomenal things gearing up for you moving forward. You have a single coming out at the end of November, In Case You Miss Me, a full length project coming out in
Yeah.
2025. Where can people find you online so they can keep up to date with all of these amazing milestones?
Yeah, my TikTok and Instagram are Nick Rich Official, but you can just mostly find me anywhere by looking up Nick Rich. So, on Spotify. That's my name and whatnot. And if anyone listening is in London next month, I'd love to see them at the show. It's November 8th. I'd love to talk with them. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to have all of Nick's socials linked down below. And if you do go to see him at the show, make sure you get a picture, send it to him. So that way he has
Yes.
proof, future proof. We got to have that photo
Yeah.
album started. And if you're not already following the podcast, make sure to follow us on Instagram or TikTok at sorude.podcast. We always love to bring phenomenal guests, friends, artists, creatives on the show. And literally getting to capture these conversations is such a joy for me. Make sure you go back and follow us so that way you can keep up to date with any future episodes. And as always, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Bye.